just any number of things that could
Late Archaic period. This is 4,000 years. Thank you.
you bet.
Okay, so this
6,000 to 9,000 year old.
Really? There's some really cool
basic geometric design.
They're like
This is 8,000 years. Early Archaic.
Yeah, these are images of the real pebbles. These are drawings of the designs. They're the old ones here,
Yes.
and the late archaic ones here, and then the late prehistoric one. This is front and back of the same pebble,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, very different styles.
Yeah.
And
Are this recent or?
yeah, these are written. Yeah, yeah. You do get engraved pebbles,
Yeah.
same age. We also there are engraved pebbles that are older
Yeah.
than pebbles. We have engraved pebbles up to 13,000 years old.
13,000. Wow.
So, portable art, very long tradition in the world.
Yeah.
It is the art on the shelter walls.
Yeah.
Now,
It's from Texas Highway.
the rock art on the shelter walls, the Pecos River stone like that is 4,000.
4,000. This one.
1,500 years old. And then there's a different style of spring glen of about 800
Yeah.
years ago. Yeah, there's an even older style, but we're not sure what that's to because they're so small.
Yeah.
You can't get that pigment without destroying
Yeah.
the image to get data.
oh, over here.
But for the shelter walls, the reds are hematite for the base, that's a mineral.
Yeah.
The black manganese is it.
Manganese. Okay, that makes sense.
If it occurs out there,
Yeah.
manganese.
So they were also able to cultivate manganese as it's a metal, like black metal.
But they used it for the pigment.
Yeah.
For the pebbles, they use chocolate. But for painting the shelter walls,
You need
they use the
manganese.
manganese.
Yeah.
And so you take the mineral,
Yeah.
in this case manganese, and you mix it with fat and water.
Fat
Fat
and water.
makes a binder,
Yeah.
and then you add the water, it makes this thick, dewy mix. So then you take yucca root and pound it out and get the saponins and add it to the water and dew. Then you get this beautiful liquid paste.
Yeah.
So you have to add soap.
Wow, that's like that is so complex.
It makes it
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah. Wow. It's like that is so that's a complex chemistry.
Yeah.
It's like
And
how do they?
these kinds of murals, these are very carefully planned murals. They're not just random.
Yeah, not just random ones.
Yeah, it's very carefully and intentionally designed and painted. So think about how much paint you've got to mix it. This guy is about feet across.
8 feet.
Wait, which brush?
So you guys can use these. So for the really coarse ones, I recommend you use the actual brush part of it. Uh-huh. Yeah. And then if you want to do really fine work, you can dip the back end of it and do real fine lines.
Cool.
You guys made some really good pigment. It's interesting because some of these rock shelters that we're in, especially when all of the real big rock paintings on the walls
Yeah.
is, that stuff is 2,000 to 4,000 years old. And then there'll be some modern graffiti, and
Yeah.
the modern graffiti will be gone almost. But the other stuff is still very vivid.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yep.
Hello, sir.
These are all of these artifacts were found at a site in Bastrop County. Y'all know where Bastrop is? If you get on a boat on the Colorado River and you just go down the river, the next town will be Bastrop. So it's not very far from here. But these items that are in this case right here, this would be younger than 1,000 years old. Everything in this area is older than 1,000 years. And, well, no, this is just a mussel shell.
Oh, just
Yeah, but these people, the reason that they chose the place to live is because of the mussel shell.
Mussel shells.
Or because of the mussels. That was a reliable source of food.
Yeah.
And so they would probably stay in that area until they had exhausted all the mussels.
Oh, wow.
And then they would move
To another
a few
location.
miles away. And then next year, they would come back to this same place and there would be more mussels there.
Yeah. Wow, that makes sense.
Yeah, but that was their life. They were nomadic like that.
Yeah. Is it so? This spear, like approximately
Right.
over 1,000 years old.
This is probably from about the time that changes from BC to AD.
Yeah.
It's about 2,000 years old.
Wow,
And this
look
is
at
actually a spear point. They had short spears about this long that they could attach to a throwing stick. And then the throwing stick made it travel faster. And then about 1,000 years ago, they started making arrow points.
Oh, that's an arrow point. That's
This
for a
is
stick.
right. So you can see, even though this one's fairly small, it's nothing compared to this.
Okay, so that's a stick. This is for the arrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So
I
you can
didn't know that.
imagine if you put something like this on the end of an arrow, it's not going to go very far. But once they began using the bow and arrow, they stopped using spears altogether.
When they stopped using it,
About 1,000 years ago.
because they stopped using
Big bow and arrow. Bow and arrow. No, what I'm saying, they stopped making big spear points and they started making arrow points.
what's the difference?
Well, this is much lighter,
Yeah.
much smaller, and so let's say if this was your arrow,
Yeah.
you got to have something small like that, and this just wouldn't go. This wouldn't go very far.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but they both are from stone.
Right.
Metal,
Yeah.
when did metal came up?
Well, metal came with the Europeans, the settlers who brought it. And so once they started making contact with the Europeans, they made points out of metal. They also would work with glass a little bit, but mainly with metal. And so sometime in the 1700s, around here, maybe the 1600s even, they would have started making their points with metal.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. That's American.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like
So yeah, in places like Europe, points like this were not. You don't see very many points like this. This is what we call the Neolithic period, and of course they had metal and bronze back 3000 BC in the Middle East. So it spread into Europe and other parts of the world like that, and they stopped using metal here. I mean here, but now when the people migrated to the Americas was the Neolithic period, and they brought the knowledge of how to make points with them, but we don't have the Paleolithic and Mesolithic.
Yeah, because in museums in Europe, I'm used to see mostly metal stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But this is kind of younger, older stuff.
Right. It's an older technology, but it's younger because it lasted much longer here.
Yeah, different cultures.
Right. Right.
Oh, that's why it's called Neolithic.
Yeah, Neolithic. In the Paleolithic, like out of the Vi Gorge, what have you, a million years ago, they might make something like this.
Something like that. So it'll be
How
more
many
pretty.
years ago Paleolithic was used?
Paleolithic would be maybe a million years ago,
Metal.
500,000 years ago.
Yeah.
But then when people migrated to America, they were still using stone, and they didn't advance very fast.
Yeah.
They began working with gold and silver in South America, Mexico, places like that. But here, there just wasn't much pressure. There was no warfare. There was a lot of food everywhere.
Yeah.
They hunted, and there wasn't anything to stimulate
Development.
technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, because technology comes from warfare. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
That makes sense now.
for a lot of
Yeah,
things.
all of this stuff is like
Yeah.
cell phone
So
technologies.
we don't have any evidence of warfare until the bow and arrow.
Yeah.
When in the late prehistoric times, there were more people, and so the territory that they traveled around was smaller.
Yeah.
Their diet was more restricted because of the smaller territories that they traveled in, and we do have evidence of warfare.
So does it make sense to think that arrow was developed to kill human instead of hunting reasons?
No,
Or
you
were
can't
they
say
just-
that.
Yeah,
you can't say
not.
that.
It's like
Don't know that.
it's
But what happens before 1000 AD, there were very few burials, so we don't have very many examples of how people died. But in the ones that we do find, we don't find a lot of points like this.
yeah.
But later on, people were making ceramics, and they were using the bow and arrow, and they would bury their dead. And so I feel like it was a different group of people that had come in.
Yeah, different.
And
culturally.
when we do find burials, we will find arrow points in their
Embedded,
skeletons.
embedded.
And you will find maybe 4 or 5 arrows.
Embedded.
Yeah.
So they were shooting
So
at
they
that
were
person.
ambushed, and they would just kill one person,
Yeah.
and then they would go into another people's territory, and then they'd kill one person, and then run back home, and then that group of people would send a raiding party, and they would kill one person, and then they would go back home.
It was an all-around good tool to have. Had a sharp edge on both sides, could be used as a knife.
Yeah. So they just slice things off of it?
Yeah,
Like,
they
just
would, they would drive them off.
yeah.
Just long, skinny blades about that width,
Yeah.
all the way across.
So how would they chip it off?
They take a hammerstone or a piece of large antler, and you have to actually make what we call a platform. And they were trying to rejuvenate this top here so they could actually get more material, but they discarded it.
Because
We picked up a whole new one because at golf, this stuff's everywhere.
yeah, this stuff is everywhere.
It's just everywhere. So basically, they strike it, it drives off a blade. It usually follows these arises. So if I were, if this was real and I had a hammerstone, I would set up a little platform there, and I would hit it as hard as I could.
Yeah.
And it would drive off a blade following that aris. It's just like, chert is not exactly, it's not a liquid or a solid. It actually, a lot of vibrations go through it, so it acts
Yeah.
like glass. So it's very predictable. That's why we can make such beautiful points.
Are those original ones?
All of them are casts. But basically, this is actually a Clovis point from Utah.
Wow, it's so nice looking. I mean, is this
it's
so?
gorgeous? Now these are worn out, and that another version of a Clovis point's over there that has just been totally obliterated. I mean, it's been reworked and reworked.
Yeah.
But at the Galt site, we got this stuff all over the place, including water and other resources that they not only came there, they stayed there.
Yeah.
So, and these are Folsom points, and these actually went on Atlatl darts. You see how tiny they are. So I always tell people, it's like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's still just as deadly as one of these.
Yeah. And the how this would be approximately?
These are about 13,000 years old.
13,000. Oh wow. I mean, look at the craftsmanship on this one. I mean,
And these are even more impressive. And
Yeah.
that's a Folsom point, and they drive flutes up
yeah,
both
and
sides.
also are these two types of different stones? So which one?
It's the same chert, it just comes in different colors.
Oh, different color. Okay.
Yes, different colors. Sometimes I heat treat it and it will turn a little bit. So this is Clovis, about 13,000. This is Folsom,
Yeah.
about 10 to 11,000 years
10
old.
to 11,000.
This is an Andice point, and it's between 4 and 6,000 years old.
4 and 6 times.
And these are just like probably archaic style,
Yeah.
so the last anywhere between 1,200 years ago. And these are real common, found all over the place.
Yeah.
But these little guys, we couldn't bring them with us. This is our latest find. We just completed a Science Magazine article in this past July. We passed peer review. These are 16,000 years.
Oh, so those are the
And
oldest ones.
that's how small they are. And they were found underneath our Clovis deposits at the Galt site. And Galt site is known for its Clovis. 60% of all Clovis artifacts come from the Galt site all over,
Yeah.
in the continent. But below the Clovis deposits is another about 150,000 artifacts came from what we call Area 15
Yeah.
that we dug at the Galt site, and these are three of 8 points that we found that don't look anything like Clovis.
Yeah.
And these are older than those.
Wow.
And this one's going to be at the Bullock Museum in Austin,
Yeah.
starting in December. You
it's
see
like-
how big and pretty these are.
Yeah.
Something that we're just now learning about these older sites is that they're very specified. They're very small groups, whereas
Yeah.
Clovis was all over the place.
Yeah.
But before Clovis came along, there were already people here that just
Yeah.
had their own unique style of making stone tools.
Yeah.
So when we found these and we told our colleagues, they scoffed. Said, nope, there's no way those are older. But we proved them. We proved them wrong.
But imagine as they remove flakes from there, they use it, it gets dull, they resharpen it so it gets smaller. This was actually made out of alabate, so it comes from the panhandle. So that was found on top, and this stone was found on top of that. So we had that little sandwich of incised stone, Clovis point incised stone. So this was really important. He alerted Dr. Mike Collins, Dr. Tom Hester, so they first came out. That's really how sort of gold started in its modern form, and the scientific work we've been doing out there. And so what we do know is because this is a Clovis point, these are 13,000 years old as well.
13,000.
So it gives us at least a date for the oldest portable art we found, finding it at the gold site. And that's just one of these, we keep making these sort of amazing discoveries of gold. One of those was the incised stone, of course, the materials below the stuff older than Clovis.
That's a bomb.
Actually, we
Mammoth
have
bomb.
just finished a brand new documentary video all about these recent discoveries. As a member, we're hoping in maybe
on or etched on?
It's etched on. What they're doing is probably taking thin flakes, so thin pieces of chert or flint, and then just scratching it down along the surface. We've actually looked using a high-powered microscope. We've taken a look at these markings, and we can see that most of them have this sort of slightly U-shaped cross-section in the cut. Now, if you look at a metal tool, metal's much, much sharper, you get this very clean V-shaped cut. Because chert isn't as sharp, then you get a slightly U-shaped cut, and that's how we know it was done in this gold.
They support it.
Yeah, so they've just poured it.
What is the material? Is that a?
It's limestone.
That's a limestone.
It's limestone.
Okay, looks like a bone.
And so it's interesting. So this came from the Panhandle, so there must have been some migratory route.
Absolutely.
Trade
Yeah.
Or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's curious. We can't, because of the time period so far back in time, we don't quite know. But yeah, obviously, either groups were moving across Texas and maybe further seasonally,
Yeah.
following resources, following animal herds, or perhaps groups would occasionally meet and they would trade materials. And of course, the groups that were using alabase, the alabase is beautiful red color. It would be a commodity, certainly. So it may well be that a certain group, used that material. Well, they just knew that they could keep going back to that source and harvesting this really nice material.
Yeah.
And we've actually...
Is that a flint or a chert type
Yeah,
material? Or
it's a silicate rock, basically.
Okay.
So it acts the same way. And interestingly, one of our, we had a postdoctoral student with us about 4 years ago now, Andy Spear. And what he did is he chemically analyzed the chert itself. He was used a technique called laser ablation. But he was able to show that we have about 40 COVID points from the gold site. And he was able to show that 2 of those points actually came from what we call the Callahan Divide. That's sort of north of the Edwards Plateau, and basically west of Dallas. So it's sort of north of here. And 1 point actually came from San Antonio. So even looking at this material, we can show that there's movement of even cherts to and from the gold site. So I think what happened is, let's say you go hunting and you have something like this on your dart or your spear. Well, you take it out, you use it, maybe it gets slightly dull and you can resharpen it. When it gets to a point where that's just going to break or it's going to be too small to use. And what happens is they'll just take it out because, funny enough, these are almost easier to make than making straight, long arrow shafts or dart shafts. You have to straighten the wood, you have to treat it, cure it somehow. So it's actually a good napper can make these in like 20 minutes or so. And so once this is broken, you may have another one to go. So you keep your dart shaft and you attach it. So the thing that's broken, you throw on the ground. So if you're traveling seasonally,
it's ancient shell game.
yeah, right, exactly. So if you're traveling, then you discard the broken one. You put on a new one of whatever local material it is, and you carry on seasonally working around the environment. And so what we find at the gold site, what's really curious, is we only find the broken pieces of the gold site. So all the really good stuff is missing.
Somewhere.
They've taken it with them, they've traveled with it, they've hunted it, they've explored.
That's the useful stuff that we're going to take with us.
We have all of their refuse, all of their discard, and that's sort of what archaeology is. We only have the stuff they decided to discard. Now, somewhere out there, and your reference about a shelf casing, we think this sort of technology is a lot like a soldering rifle. You're constantly cleaning it. You're constantly stripping it to pieces, keeping it clean, putting it back together. But if you're carrying something like this around, you're going to be constantly making sure you sharpen the edge, making sure it's ready for the hunt or the activity. And then, of course, when it breaks, you are going to discard it, you're going to make another one. So it's a really sort of fascinating window into human behavior. And that's one of the things that, I know, certainly myself in nursing, spent so long studying, is the actual technology. Because it's sort of like, we all, we may have worked with wood. Well, there's so many different ways of making wood. Right. Some people have a different way of making wood than another. That's stuff in relation to me. And if you can learn the specific technology, you can start to look at similarities and differences in populations. And so that's what we do. So we're trying to understand sort of how at gold site, of course, we have this Clovis deposit, but we also have this much older, this 16,000 plus year old assemblies called the gold assembly, which is a small picture in that display kit. They're really, really small. I mean, compared to this, we're talking about this sort of size, and that was final. That was when they were produced. And so, how do you get from one technology to the other? Is it that they changed their technology? They just did something new,
Right.
or is it that somehow?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I missed when you talked about these markings on these things.
Well, these are really interesting. My pleasure. Thank you very much. These are really interesting. Okay, so you can see what we have is these parallel lines. So we've got two lines together, and then what they're doing is repeating them and crisscrossing them. Now, this is always plastic, but it's made on limestone. The original was made on limestone,
All right.
and it was found at this Clovis point. So we know it's 13,000 years old. We know
13,000.
it's significantly old. But one of the things is we don't quite know what it represents. And there's a lot of different ideas. One of the curious things is across the world, you actually have sort of very similar geometric designs repeat themselves in early prehistory. So, I mean, this could be just an abstract design.
Abstract design.
But it may be representing something. One thing we do know, we don't find evidence of gold, but we do know during this time that they were making basketry.
Okay.
And if you think about very simple basketry, we just talked about it in another. Well, that's exactly the sort of crisscross thing you're seeing here. So it may be that it represents some sort of basketry motif, a design of basketry. It could also be sort of maybe archaeologists love saying this, but it could be ritual. It could have some sort of meaning that we don't understand. So they're really interesting. It's the same thing with this. You see, we have these sort of stalks up them, and then these diamonds. Well, we think these represent what we call wheat, the wheat stone. So, you know, of course, it wouldn't be agricultural. This would be growing wild. But it's actually double-sided as well. So this is probably depicting the world around them.
Yeah.
Now, you know, why were they depicting the world around them? We don't quite know. And the other thing is, of course, it could always just be graffiti. And it's been shown, interestingly, in modern experiments, that when you sit, let's say you're in class and you're doodling, you're, you know, just trying to, you actually learn more by doodling than if you weren't doodling.
Yeah.
So it's sort of that design, keeping up, you know, part of our body busy, actually opens us up to learning new things. So it might be involved in that as well. So they're really curious things. We know they're incredibly old, that 13,000 years, and they're the earliest examples of artwork we have in North America.
Is there like such a possibility that, let's say, so this is approximate age of this one is 13,000.
13,000.
So that makes this one 13,000 approximately because it was found with this one. But is it possible that this is like, let's say, even like 20,000 years old, but because somebody collected it somewhere, like they found it, oh, this is interesting. So they carry that around for like generations. Yeah, so there's
it is also the possibility. You know, and that's the interesting thing. You know, you think about it, and of course, my background, I, you know, grew up in the UK doing archaeology in the UK. You know, it's really interesting because you find, you know, we have things like Stonehenge. Familiar with? Well, you know, when the Romans arrived, they found these standing stone circles. And they actually destroyed some of them and reused that building material. And then the Vikings and the Saxons came and they reused Romans. So all throughout history, it's not just, you know, it's not just this modern world that we have an obsession with. They are obsessed. So we do know, we have examples of Clovis points that have what we call the diagnostic technological flaking of Clovis on the base, but on the tip it's completely different. And what's happened is someone has picked up three words. Basically it was not bad, but I can do better, and they just turned it into what they need. So particularly at a site like Gold, where there does seem to be periods where this stuff was lying on the surface, they could just pick it up and they could